coaching really is like a mirror back to yourself. It's like parenting. You think you're the best parent before you have kids. And you have kids. And you think you're the best coach until you coach different people. Like everyone I coach is completely different and they challenge me in different ways. And sometimes you're thinking, like, is it them or is it me? And like, well, it's a bit of both, but maybe I should really look at like stuff I'm doing.
Hello, welcome back to the Run Alive podcast. Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Gary is not with us this week because he is having a well-earned holiday in the New Forest. So I hope he's having a good time. But we love holidays and we let him off. So yeah, good for him. Are you running anymore, Jenny? I mean, you're back's training as usual.
I mean, I complained last week that I wasn't doing much, but I ended up running 90 miles. So
I suspected that might be the case. I didn't say it, but yeah. I remember when we interviewed you for the podcast the first time, you were like, oh yeah, I had a bit of a down week, but it was actually still, like I was still running every day and, etc. So 90 miles, so that, that wasn't much of a down week, was it?
It wasn't much of a down week, and I'm probably a bit of a twisted character, but ended up getting to 90, which satisfied me. Friday was a big day. It was 4x2K in the morning, and then I did 2 sets of 4 800s and then 8 400s in the afternoon. So it ended up being 19 miles for the day.
Oh my gosh.
So safe to say I was slightly tired over the weekend. But
well, I saw you had some unwanted cross country as well yesterday on your
My coach actually told me, he's like, Jenny, you should, be a bit more adventurous with your runs rather than just like running down the Taff. So we went over to Abergavenny yesterday to run a little bit.
Nice.
Now that goes from Brecon to, I'm not even sure, Monmouth, I think. But I expected a nice, easy run. It was just puddle galore. But it was nice to go somewhere different. So I'm sure I'll be forced back. But no, it was good. How was yours?
There's something in that. There's something in that, isn't there? Like just the variation of space as well. Like if it, just to keep, because otherwise it can get monotonous, especially if you're in a big training block. And so you just have to go out and do, and you're seeing the same things every day.
I mean, I know like exactly where every single mile is in every single direction from the door now, and I could probably do like an 8-mile run with my eyes closed. So it's good to be a little bit more. How's your week been?
It's been good. I enjoyed recovering a little bit less running for me as the taper starts to kick in. And then I had the Sutton 10K yesterday, which went very well. It was yesterday was windy.
Yes,
as I'm sure you remember.
As it has been for the last what seems like 4 months.
Yes, and the Sutton 10K course is not, as I said last week, it's not necessarily a PB course, but slightly undulating. But I decided to have a go at it and not expect PB, but still want to run quite fast. But as it turned out, I ran a 3-second PB. So the important 3 seconds, because my previous PB was 35:02. So I've lowered it under the 35-minute mark. So I'm very pleased with that.
That is key. That must give you confidence now going into the marathon. I mean, that's got to be the last hard effort, right?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, there's a few kind of intensive sessions, just keeping a little bit of sharpness in the legs, but nothing at that kind of level. So yeah, it gives me quite a bit of confidence to know that, fastest I've ever been.
Yeah.
But it was a nice, 10Ks are brutal anyway, aren't they? I mean, you've got one coming up.
I'm already dreading it.
It was a two and a little bit lap course, and there was a particular uphill into the wind section on each of the big laps, which was just a real hang on and grit your teeth through it.
Mm-hmm.
I came 8th in the end. The guy who came 7th overtook me with about 500 meters to go, which was initially annoying, but then actually I think it saved my race because I just was able to hang on to him and he sort of dragged me through the last 500. And I think without that, I would have faded and not, easily lost those 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, very pleased with it. And just head down and recover more 2 weeks time.
what's the plan for the next week? Are you
Bit of easy running. I've got progression, I think, on Thursday up to above marathon pace, an hour and a half on Sunday, and then just, a little bit next week. So
done any weather watching yet?
Fortunately not. No, I think the app does like 10 days in advance, so I can't quite tune into that. But what was cool was they did release the start pens, and last year everyone from my club seemed to be like spread across the different starts, because at London they have like red start, yellow start, green start, blue start, and they all start at different places. And then within each of those starts, you've got numbered pens. So even if you're running a similar time last year, it didn't seem like there was much. Well, the people who I knew who were running similar times were spread across all those different coloured starts. But this year, pretty much everyone from my club is in the same start pen. So that is pretty cool, pretty exciting. I'm excited about that because it should give us, some people to run with in East Additionally.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. What's coming up for you this week? Have you got anything big coming?
For a couple of sessions, back to the classic Tuesday, Friday, with a long run on the weekend. Got kind of 2 weeks of kind of heavy workouts, and then a 5K in Battersea actually on the track. So
nice.
Kind of,
yes.
Yeah, short-term goal, I guess. So yeah, head down this week and trying not to get too carried away.
Cool. Well, I'm hoping to come along and cheer you on at that 5K.
It should be a good event, yeah. Definitely.
So this week we're speaking to Marcus Brown. Marcus is a marathoner, a coach, and he's also an advocate for Black runners. And we're releasing this on Friday. This is the Friday of the Boston Marathon weekend. And it's big. It's a couple of weeks for Marcus, because he's running Boston on Monday and then flying back over and running London on Sunday, 2 weeks' time. So a really big challenge, one that he did last year and he signed up for again. But we'll let him tell you the story of that. So let's crack on.
I only saw the London Marathon on the BBC, and I thought that was kind of like my limit. And I saw people running it, and then you run it yourself, and it's a great way to see the city that you're a part of. And it was just an incredible experience. There's not a lot of resources for late diagnosed people, and a lot of the analysis and the research is based on no respect on white men. A lot of people who aren't in that format are left behind. Also, because the way that I present as well, I've done a podcast on social media. People are like, "Are you sure?" It's going to sound very gladiator. Marcus Brown, born no. I guess like people know me in the media side of just a runner. So I've started off from not really running at school to finding my way through races from 10K, and then working my way up to the marathon, and my own podcast, the Runner's Life podcast, and obviously some other spin-offs I've done through there. I'm also a running coach as well. But outside that, I work in construction. I'm a father of 2 young kids, which keep me honest. And yeah, that's probably one of the most exciting parts of, I guess, my life at the moment. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for joining us. And we're looking forward to digging into a lot of that story in the next half an hour or so. Marcus, we will ask everyone who comes on this question to start off with, what makes you come alive?
I think if you ask me in 5 years, I'll probably give you a different answer. But right now, I feel that I'm in a certain window of where I can probably run my fastest in the marathon. And I think for me right now, it's just trying to see like how fast I can go in the marathon distance. That's probably running wise, but outside of running, it's my kids. They keep me honest. I'm loving the conversations that you have with them when they're quite young. Obviously, initially they don't give anything back, but then they start giving you like really good things to think about and ponder. And then sometimes I forget that they're really old. They're still quite young. So I had a conversation with my daughter today, and I chucked like a really complicated thing back at her, thinking I was talking to a friend, and then she just went, can we just get some crisps or something? Like something really random. Like, you've got to wear them above my head now. So yeah, we're going to move on.
Oh, just you wait when they start giving you the sass back. I've got 3 kids, and 2 of them get to that stage where they give as good as they get now. So you've got they keep you on your toes for sure. And I love that answer around getting faster with the marathon. I think we've got kindred spirit there. Like, I'm very much motivated by trying to run faster. And although the difference between us is that I've just decided that I need to control everything that I can control, and therefore I'm going to do basically the London Marathon for as long as I can because it's nearby. It's my local marathon. And I bet you have gone around the world, haven't you? You're a 6-star finisher, and you've run marathons all over the world. How have you? Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was your motivation behind the 6 stars?
Initially, it was pretty limited. I only saw the London Marathon on the BBC, and I thought that was kind of like my limit. And, I saw people running it, and then you run it yourself, and it's a great way to see the city that you're a part of on foot. You see the people. It's a different experience going on foot, and it was just an incredible experience. Obviously, after the fact, during it felt terrible. The first time I ran it in just over nearly 5 hours, and it's taken me quite a few years to finally get sub 3.
So when was the 5 hours attempt?
That was in 2010.
Okay.
And I had like a couple of years out of not training and, get back into it and finding a coach and finding different coaches. And there's no real secret to running fast. It's basically run consistently for a long time and add a few consistent bits. You'll sort of chip away at it. So, so London for me was the main one. Then I had a friend who ran, actually, I had to take a step back. So I ran London. I got through the ballot. And then I applied to Berlin. And this was the days when you could it was like first come, first serve.
Right, yeah.
So I ran Berlin, and I thought, okay, I've done my international one. That's probably where it's going to stop. It didn't actually become the majors until I think about 2016, 2017 in Tokyo. And I had a friend who ran the New York City Marathon. And I was just like, it can't be as good as London Marathon. And she's like, no, it's better. I was like, wow, okay, really? And it kind of opened my mind to think, okay, cool, let me just like think outside my box and see how I can find a way. And I think the brain's an amazing thing. Once you tell it you can do something, you'll find ways to do it. And then I ran it, found it really challenging, but I loved it. And I crossed the finish line, and I saw a British guy. I didn't know him at the time. He had like a 6-star medal around his neck, and I just got chatting to him, a British guy called Sam, and he told me about his journey, which made, because when you cross the finish line in New York, you've got like to walk a mile anyway, so it's quite a long walk. So it's quite good to sort of take my mind off actually how painful it was at the end of the marathon. And he just basically explained to me like what the majors were, and I was like, wow, now I've done that one. And then it kind of kicked me forward to wanting to do the others. And yeah, I mean, going sort of full circle, I mean, I really love the Boston Marathon. I just feel like it's definitely more of a racer's race. Although you still have the charity runners and they still do a lot. And I'm not trying to say it's one or the other, but I kind of feel like it's the one that you kind of feel like it's hard to explain. So when you get into the pen, there's so many people around you. And most of the people running at that area are more used to be at the front end of the race anyways. But then when you get to Boston, there's like thousands of you. So you're like, oh, Ring was not that special anyways. So you're running this massive pack for ages. And that's quite cool because you can settle into it. And I really like that vibe. Everyone that's gone there has put the work in. Not saying that people don't work hard to run Berlin or Tokyo or anything like that, but I just feel like the culture and the history behind it makes it really special. Whereas London, you still have that, but it's more like the championship places and the good for like are very limited. And the good for age, you wouldn't know a good for age runner by the bib. I mean, it's just kind of mixing the pens. So it's definitely more about the charity and the first timers. And I feel like that's still a good thing, but it's more of the community aspect, whereas Boston's more about the racing aspect, I feel.
And you're talking about London and Boston. You're doing the double this year. I think you've done that before, have you?
Yeah, I did last year.
So what is it about the kind of Boston-London double? They're 6 days apart, which,
I couldn't believe this when I read this. This was just madness, Marcus.
I don't know. It felt like a good idea at the time. So I got the qualifying times and I thought I couldn't really say no to one. so I decided to do both. But yeah, running Boston was tough. So I ran that in 2:57 and yeah, the hills just beat your legs up. And I didn't feel normal until probably Saturday, or half normal. I was just like, I remember going to the expo. I just felt like I had like this lost look in my body, like someone had taken my soul. And like people are like chatting to you, and they're like, "Hey, it's exciting," because they're running the London Marathon. You're just like, I can remember how painful it was only a couple of days ago. Please don't remind me.
It's too soon.
Let me get my bib in sleeve. But by Saturday, like I had an Epsom salt bath. I felt good. Had a nice run, and I felt good. Then back into it on Sunday. So again, to get sub 3 there was amazing. But yeah, hard work. And then same thing happened again. I couldn't choose. I think I need to get better at choosing. I think because next year someone was telling me that they're a lot closer together, so it might not be possible. So I'll probably have to choose one or the other.
Oh, wow, gosh.
First world problems, I know.
You said something super intriguing a few minutes ago about the brain being an amazing thing, and if you sort of fix on a goal or tell yourself you can do something, it finds a way of making it happen. Has that's clearly been true for you in running? Is it true for you also outside of running? Has there been this sort of parallel journey where running's been happening for you, and also you've taken lessons or taken that big lesson that what you set your mind to, you can make happen? Has that happened for you outside of the road sphere?
It's a good question, actually. I feel like for most people, it could be running, it could be some other interest, but something that gives you passion, and you have to keep experimenting and trying and learning from it. You can really take lessons into your life. I sort of feel that my running life has definitely intersected into areas of my life and back and forth. So sometimes it's quite hard to kind of pick areas in isolation. I would say that, running has definitely given me more confidence. And then that led to potentially doing the podcast. I did the podcast because it was during lockdown, and I wanted to connect with other runners. I wasn't really a fan of my own voice. I think most people are when you hear it back. And I wanted to get over that fear. I thought it was just really silly. I just wanted to get better at speaking to people. And so I wouldn't have gone on to that if I didn't do the running and back and forth. So it's really all sort of intersects with each other. And I'm not saying I'm the best speaker or public speaker, but now I'm at the stage where I just don't really care. I didn't have that same fear. And, you do a couple of podcasts at the start and you think, oh my gosh, that was really terrible. And then actually wasn't as bad as you thought. Like no one died. It went out. So
yeah. And Ed and I are mere babies in the podcasting here compared to you, but I definitely recognize that thing of you start it, you put it out there, and you're like, oh, it's amazing, but also the world hasn't ended. No one's knocking at my door telling me I'm an idiot. You're 185 episodes in. That's pretty incredible. You kick that off. Just tell us a little bit more about that journey.
You've done it all by yourself as well, haven't you? It's so at least we can bounce off each other, Gary, whereas Marcus has been 185 episodes off the bat. It's all you. That's an incredible feat.
Yeah, it's like running. You have periods of it that you enjoy more than others. There's times you want to quit, and then there's moments something happens and you think, wow, this is why I should continue doing it, or you pivot. I think for me, like I said, it started off as a learning experience. Like you write the book that you want for yourself. So I was just trying to find what is the trading secret, or what do other people do? And then you speak to people and then you realize speaking to pro athletes, I think before I had this massive, unrealistic expectation, because you just don't know. You think these people are superhuman, but then you realize actually they've been doing it since they're yay high, and that's just their reality. And they've got everyday problems like you and I, and same for you. It's you could start an interview, but you never know what's happened in that person's life. We're all going through stuff, and sometimes it takes a while to warm up, and you learn what questions you should ask or what you shouldn't ask. And so, I went through that kind of process of just initially doing the Q&A style, and then it kind of got a bit more fluid as I got more confident myself. But there was a kind of a period of time that I actually wanted to quit doing it. And it's always interesting. The breakthrough always happens after you're so close to wanting to quit. So a breakthrough for me was having a conversation with Blair Wilson, who's autistic. And I didn't know a lot about autism at the time. I had a lot of misconceptions about what it was. And listening to him, I thought, wow, this sounds a lot like me. And it kind of clicked. And then I just knew my gut that that was kind of me. And we had a conversation afterwards. He gave me some recommendations of who to speak to, how to do assessments and that kind of stuff. And that led me down the path and actually finding out that I was also neurodiverse as well. So the podcast has actually changed my life in a weird way, because I don't know would I have found out any sooner or later. So and it's also brought friendships. So I've got like a new series that I'm doing with a group of guys, and we've all met through Boston, and we talk about experiences, but it's been very kind of like off the cuff type thing, not as polished as some of the early ones, but we really enjoy it. And I think that's the main thing. We get some good feedback from it. So yeah, it's been really good.
That's incredible. The thing that strikes me about your conversation with Blair, which was like truly life-changing for you, is you start a podcast and you want it to have an impact. Certainly for me, I was always thinking about impact on other people, but then you realize you change. And actually for you had this incredible moment of insight, right? That maybe had made lots of your life, maybe sort of up till that point, suddenly make sense and drop into place. That must have been pretty, I don't know, profound, incredible. What has that led to for you? How is that, sort of, you talked a little bit there about what it's sort of created in your life, but that new understanding of yourself as being autistic, and there's neurodivergence in people very close to me. What has that sort of opened up for you now, and what has it made possible, and what's different?
Wow, that's such a big question. I'm trying to think where can I take it really, but if I can try and be as concise, I think before, like I said, I didn't know, but I had an inkling that was something just off, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then you get the assessment, and I did the podcast, and you're like, wow, this is me. This makes sense, and now I'm going to go forward. But then afterwards, it's kind of like this yo-yoing effect of, okay, what do I do with this? Where do I learn more about myself? Because there's not a lot of resources for late diagnosed people, and a lot of the analysis and the research is based on, no respect, on white men. So a lot of people kind of who aren't in that sort of format are left behind. Also because the way that I present as well, I've done a podcast, I do a podcast, I'm on social media. People are like, are you sure? You know what I mean? So you kind of get that kind of that reaction. So I think initially you're expecting people to be like, yeah, okay, cool, I understand it. But then there's this kind of, sometimes people do understand, sometimes there's apathy. So I've kind of learned to just manage myself in that thing, which is in a weird way is good, because it makes you appreciate actually that this is who you are. And you have to learn to come to terms with it yourself. You're not always going to get people that are going to be for you, or, some people kind of leave you in that kind of space. But I've basically from then gone on to doing a lot of research. I'm still in that process now of, like, I've recently done a course on it, and I still will do more learning on it. And I connect with other people who are late diagnosed, and they go through similar challenges as well. And I think it's just about, one, building a network, and two, developing that level of understanding. Not that the understanding will like solve all your problems, but it gives you like a framework of, okay, this is what this thing is. And for me, it's about trying to redefine it. Even the definition of autism, I'm not really comfortable with, to be honest, and I don't really like that definition. And it's even just trying to redefine what it means for me. I don't feel lost in myself. I don't feel like I'm lost in my own world. I just process things in a different way, and I see things in a different way. And you just try to do the best that you can, and you're always just trying to be more conscious of just where you are. But it's like, even if you're neurotypical, it's like an ongoing thing. You don't just get to one point, you're like, damn, I'm done, I've reached the mountaintop. There's always more understanding and learning about yourself that you're undertaking. And like I said, there's been some great people that I've met, and I've through this, and helped me and continue to help me. And then you try to pass that forward as well. So I've done some podcasts talking about it, but I don't talk about it a lot on the actual running side. I mean, I do feel like it does help sometimes on the running side, in the sense of you can be really focused in doing things to the point where it can be a detriment to yourself. So I give you an example. So last year I ran the Berlin Marathon and had an amazing training block up to it. Felt really good. I had this little niggle that we all have, and it became like a thing during the race, early the race, about 19k or something like that. And I was just like, man, this really sucks. This really sucks. But I could find a way to compartmentalize that pain of that, and I was just like, it's not as bad as, say, something else happened in your life, right? And for the race, I could just like accept it, lean into it, and just go. The result was that it was still my second fastest marathon, even though I was like running on an injury, which was kind of stupid. But then I didn't run for 3 months afterwards. So there was a lot of pain to get to the end. So like, I don't want to glorify it, but sometimes it can help just to like really narrow your focus into doing things.
That's very cool. There's so much power in what you just said, and the power I'm hearing is also just sort of knowing yourself and being ever more comfortable with that. And everyone's journey is completely unique, and I think you wear your own personal identity absolutely brilliantly, and I think you strike that beautiful balance of just being you, but also advocating on that side of life really, really nicely. So thank you for sharing that. I just want to do you've got two podcast identities that people might have picked up in this. There's A Runner's Life, which is kind of you and you alone, and then there's Relay. Is that right? Just maybe tell us a little bit more about Relay. You touched on it really briefly. That I think is a bit new and a little bit different. Just expand on that one a little bit more for us, please.
Okay, just to give a bit of clarity. So A Runner's Life, you're pretty much right. It's probably 99% me, but I've also got recently a new mini-series, which I've done with like a couple of guys that I met through Boston Marathon. Corey, Phil, Rob, and we sort of shoot the breeze, and we've had a lot of fun. And we're actually going to be doing a live podcast at the Boston Marathon Expo on Saturday morning at 9:50. So if anyone's there, come down and see us.
Cool.
So
excellent.
That's been really cool to collaborate in that aspect. But I think that may not have come about unless I did a Relay, which was basically a collaboration of running influencers, journalists, coaches, professional athletes, and we've kind of all come together. Initially, we tried to do something behind a paywall. However, I think the challenge that we have now, especially in this world, is that a lot of people are doing a lot of great work for free. So it devalues what we tried to do. We tried it. It just didn't work in that aspect. So we opened it up, and then we just made it like, if you want to contribute, you can. That's kind of where we are in this sort of day and age. But we basically try to do 2 episodes per week. And for me, it's been really good just to work with other creators, and it does raise your own standards, because you do realize, like, when you're doing your thing and you're in your own lane, you think, oh wow, there's like another way to do it, right? And I see like Mike and those guys, and like they've got agents and they're like doing all these bits, it's like, okay, cool, this is like how they're doing stuff. They make it seem like quite easy, but obviously there's a lot of work behind that goes into it, and they're pretty intentional with doing it. But at the same time, you're working with guys and women that are doing it full time, so it's their jobs. They're going to take it properly serious. So like I said, it does raise your standards, but it's good to work with other people and have a bit of fun. Really,
it's a pretty amazing podcast. Actually, I don't think I've heard anything else like it, because there's 10 of you, right? I think 10 hosts, and you kind of take it in turns, and there are different combinations and stuff, and it is a combination of people from around the world, creators, athletes, storytellers, and just bringing a huge amount of different insight, with, again, running just being at the center of it. What is it that you really like about it?
You did a really great intro, actually. I feel like I should have used your intro today.
It's all right. We recorded it. It's fine.
What do I like about it? I think for me, it's about the creative process. I think is people only look at the things that go really well, but they don't see all the things that you try that don't work. And for me, Relay really scared the hell out of me, without trying to swear. And I thought, let's just try and do something different. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You do it, you don't like it. So for me, it was just about leaning into doing something different, like the podcast, and all these things happen from like just that starting point of being scared, being actually, no, why are you scared of it? Like, you are who you are, do it, try it. So a lot of it is kind of stemming from that aspect. But and you see people that you respect in industry, like Peter Bromker, for example, and like the essays that he writes and the experience that he has from running Boston. And but then you go to the other side of it. I actually just keep ripping him, to be honest. But that's what happens when you become friends. So you just like it's like you rip each other. So in a nice way, though, it's back and forth, not in a horrible way. But yeah, it's good to have that kind of relationship as well.
I've loved reading some of Peter's writings, just as you brought him up, and especially that journey that he went on, and trying to get the Olympic qualifying time, and he missed it by a second or 2 seconds or something in the end, and but wrote so eloquently about his whole journey. As if people haven't looked it up, it's on Medium. Peter Bromker, it's definitely worth checking out. Marcus, just switching tone a little bit. I think a lot of people might know you because you were one of the founders of the Black Trail Runners. But more recently, you've been focused on a few different things in terms of diversity. Tell us particularly about this focus, on Black runners, running fast, sub threes. Your coaching comes into all that as well. What are you doing there? What are you doing in that space at the moment?
Yeah, so it's a challenging one because I feel like you try to do what feels right for you. Initially, like I started off, thanks to A6, I was working with them a while back. They gave me the funding to do the Leadership of Running Fitness course, and I did that, and then it kind of snowballed to doing the coaching running fitness that I did when I was with Black Trail Runners, and then I ended up doing endurance fitness coaching through England Athletics. I think at the time it was UK Athletics, but it's now England Athletics. And alongside that, whilst you're on your journey, people reach out to you and they say, it's always the way, like after you've done something, like after a sub 3 or something like that, they're like, show me how you did that. Okay. So then people reach out to you, and this isn't anything that I've intended. I've only had people, black and brown runners, reach out to me and ask me to coach them. Not that I won't take any white runners. It's just like those only people that have come out to me and asked me to coach them. And I've been like, okay, cool. So I think that is to do as well, not to do with like a racism type thing, but I just think people tend to go with people like subconsciously for they can relate to. And that's basically what's happened. And I started working with a couple of guys. My first client, I coached him to run sub 3 in London. And then I helped another black runner do the same thing, and I was just like, oh, okay, maybe I should really like try and like do something with this. Not that I'm trying to like drink my own Kool-Aid and could think I'm going to take over the world and like have a crew of people like all doing this sort of thing. But I thought, well, if you can like do this, then like what else could you do? And I kind of feel like there's a gap. So I'm in the process of starting something which I hope to talk about soon. It's essentially the challenge, I think, and it might not be popular, especially in England athletics clubs, is they are welcoming to different people. However, people that do come into it may feel like, for the reasons that I said before, like they don't feel a part of it. And subconsciously, people who have been in these clubs for such a long time, they don't realise that it's quite cliquey and they can't see outside of that. So it's quite hard for new people to come in, especially people of colour as well. And the stats actually show that in 2022 for black runners that complete the London Marathon, it was like 1.2%. And last year it was actually rose to 1.6%. So you think, and the answer is people will say like, there's loads of black runners, but they're only looking at, the elite runners, but people here aren't running. So I sort of feel like that just shows that like there's a group of people that are lost in that aspect. However, there are lots of run crews and people that do help. But I kind of feel like beyond that, people get lost. They try to go into the run clubs and they have a bad experience and then they just don't get back into running again. So I'm just in the process of trying to set something up which kind of addresses that. And I know people like to sort of say like running fast is like a dirty word, like you're almost less of a runner. You have to be out and, breathing fresh air to be a true runner. But like, I don't really believe that. I feel like whatever gives you your kicks whilst you're running makes you a runner. And, I'm in the period of my life now where like running fast is important, but that's not going to be important forever. It's going to transition. So like, that's where I kind of like see myself. But like I said, in growing this community, I know I'm being a bit vague about it in a minute, but I feel like there's a gap really to get more people involved, and running good for rage in championship places, not just for me, but it's good for other people to see it, and then young people to see it, and get more women involved as well, not just dudes in short shorts running marathons fast. So
I think that's brilliant. And it was in your What Makes You Come Alive as well. I really love the just owning going fast, because that's what's meaningful for you right now. But I also absolutely love just owning the fact that people have come to you, people of colour have come to you, and they're asking how can they go fast. And you're like, well, you know what? I can offer that. And that's also getting more of what I want in the world. I just think that's absolutely brilliant. And I came in with a question of like, what is it that you want to see more of in the world? But I'm taking it from your answer. I think I'm hearing more diverse start lines, more diverse finishing pens would be great from your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, across the board as well. I mean, I coach a couple of runners that aren't, going to like run championship times, but they're still looking to run their own personal best and push their own limits. And for me, that's amazing. I feel like coaching, I don't know if it's the same for you, coaching really is like a mirror back to yourself. It's like parenting. You think you're the best parent before you have kids. And you have kids. Yeah. And you think you're the best coach until you coach different people. Like everyone I coach is completely different, and they challenge me in different ways. And sometimes you're thinking, like, is it them or is it me? And like, well, it's a bit of both, but maybe I should really look at like stuff I'm doing. And like, I'm not saying like coaching is this kind of like dark art, and we've all got this sort of special potion type thing, but like it's a wheel and there's different wheels. Do you know what I mean? With different people. I heard Mario Fiori talk about it, and he sort of, that's the way he described it. You just have to adjust things slightly for the person you're working with, whether they're a carer or they work different hours or they prefer different things. Like everyone comes to you with a different kind of proposal, really, and a different wheel, and it's for you to kind of work out like what works for them, as opposed to like, here's a generic workout. Or the easiest thing is to be like, this is what worked for me, and like that is it, like this is the only system that works. I'm like, no, it's not. This is my autistic brain as well. I'm like, I like to understand the different systems. That's why I'm always like really inquisitive and understanding that. I mean, I'm not trying to overcomplicate running fast, but there are different ways to run fast, and I think there's different ways for different people. And your job as a coach is to kind of help them find it, rather than make them feel bad because they're not fitting into the way that you did it.
Totally. And I massively love the challenge of that the idea that sort of who you are is how you coach. And if I want to coach lots and lots of different people, I have to grow my capacity to be broader as a person and more complex as a person, so I can meet the needs of as many people as possible. I absolutely love that, and I'm hearing that in what matters to you. You've been incredibly generous with your time. I think our time is beginning to come to an end.
We're not going to die, Gary. Hopefully not.
No. Yeah, cracky. That sounded a little bit more definitive than I meant it to, Marcus. Sorry. We forgot to include that in the intro email. This is a terminal experience. Where you've got a lot going on, and you've got so much more to do before you're done. Where can people? What are the best ways for people to find out what you've got going on? And some of it, I sense, obviously, you can share more of. Some you can't. Just run us through what's coming up. You've got some things happening at Boston, the podcast, other things. How can people find out more?
Yes, there's a couple of things I've missed with Boston. So you can find me on Instagram, Marcus_runs. You can find me on your favorite podcast platforms, a Runner's Life podcast. I mentioned this Boston season coming up. There's two things. So I'm going to be at the Expo, the Boston Marathon Expo, on Saturday of the weekend, 9:15 onwards. So for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And also, this is an amazing thing as well. So Meb Kofletsky, who 10 years won the Boston Marathon, he's been honoured by the Black Unicorn Marathoners and the Boston Marathon, and there's a team of 5, and I'm one of the 5, which basically we get to like honour him and celebrate what he's done. So that's going to be amazing to do that, and that came about through the Black Unicorn Marathoners, and they invited me to do that. So that's incredible. So I'm looking forward to wearing that singlet with pride and sharing some time with Meb, and and some of my other colleagues out there. One of the guys that's actually running it is Phil, who's also on my podcast, that mini series I talked about, the Boston Marathon series, and he's also going to be joining me on the podcast as well. So yeah, that's what I've got coming up at the moment. Yeah, the main ways, like I said, is Instagram or the podcast. And also I've got my contact details on my Instagram page as well. So
anyone who wants to run fast, reach out to Marcus. I'm here, and I mean anyone.
Thanks, Marcus. Absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, and really looking forward to hearing how Boston goes and London as well. I'll see you on the start line maybe of London.
You'll probably be happier than me, to be honest, and happier the position than me, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll see you at the finish, and we can both be happy it's over.
Yes, definitely. What's your target for London?
I'm hoping for around 240.
Okay.
Yeah, I did 245 last year, so a bit of a stretch goal, but let's see how the next few weeks go.
Are you feeling in a good place with that, or?
Oh, I'm just in the depths of training at the moment. So it's just that season where you just can't even hit marathon pace half the time. So yeah, it's not a good time to ask me that. But like I say, ask me in a few weeks' time. We'll see how we get on.
I know the feeling. But they say it's probably actually better to get to the marathon feeling undercooked than being overcooked. So yeah.
Yeah, well,
obviously not too undercooked, like you know what I mean. Yeah.
They say 5% under rather than 1% over is better, isn't it? So,
yeah. Well, it's about getting to the start line and not being injured more than anything else, isn't it? That's the key 100%.
Thing. Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Awesome, Marcus. Thank you. Go very well. Well, I'm really grateful to Marcus for taking the time to talk to us there. That was a deep, wide-ranging conversation where I think he shared a lot of what's gone on in his life, but also like in his sort of inner journey and personal journey. That was really cool and very thought-provoking. Jenny, what really for you started to really stand out as you listened to Marcus?
I think for me, and this goes back to something I kind of touched on a couple of weeks ago, was when he kind of talked about how breakthroughs kind of always happen when you're so close to quitting. Like there's so many times when I've kind of got to the end of my tether and I've been like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it. And it's only because someone else from like my close circles kind of told me, oh no, just kind of give it one more chance. And that's been the moment when it's all clicked and it's all come together. So for me, that kind of really kind of rang true. And I think it's just that reinforcement of when things do get challenging and get hard, use like your power and the people around you to kind of just give it one more go, because it really is that kind of image of, you know, digging your way through a hole and you're just there and you turn around just before you do the last kind of push through the wall. So yeah, that kind of for me really rang true.
It's always darkest before the dawn, as they say, isn't it? And sometimes you just got to just kind of sort of keep going. Ed, what was in the foreground for you as you listened to him?
Oh, I thought it was a really fun conversation. I really enjoyed talking to him and chatting to him. I think the thing that really that I've been reflecting on is, I knew Marcus initially because he founded Black Trail Runners, but he's not really involved in that anymore. And instead, he's kind of pivoted, or he's taken what inspired him from that and then realized that actually it's this thing about helping Black runners run faster that really makes him tick. And so he hasn't been afraid to kind of go, well, actually, do you know what? This is where my focus is. This is what, as I said, makes me tick. And that's what I'm going to focus on now, and not necessarily just be like completely doing the thing that he'd done because, he thought that he should continue to do it. So I was inspired by that kind of ability to flex and pivot and sort of iterate or innovate on the theme, because it's still sort of in the same direction, but he's focused it a bit more. And I think that was a challenge and an inspiration to me.
Yeah, he didn't let himself get trapped by this is the thing that I started and I'm famous for. He's taken himself off in a different direction, which is meaningful for him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny as well because it's not like it's not a character trait. Like I could sometimes see in myself, I would start something and then get a bit bored with it and go do something else. But that's clearly not his character trait. Like he's done however many consecutive, I think 185 consecutive episodes of his podcast, et cetera, et cetera. So it's obviously not like staying power that's the issue. It's like it is kind of a focus and a not being afraid to change and pivot, which was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what stood out for me is when we cover the territory of autism and neurodiversity and his journey on that. That's personally meaningful for me. There's people in my life and in my world who are neurodiverse, and number one, to discover, particularly in the way that he discovered it, that you're autistic, at quite a sort of adult age is, I think, super challenging. And I think he's come through that fantastically. That the way he talked about that and the meaning he's made of it and how it's helped him understand himself and live his life to the kind of fullest, most authentic way that he does now. I thought that was really, really cool. That spoke to me. And I did, just back to what you were saying about what kind of the theme for both of you, that kind of consistency, discipline, focus. And this is definitely, I don't want to stereotype, but that tends to be something which can often go with autism, having the ability to kind of have a deep special interest and pull it through. So it's kind of nice to that is something he tunes into and really leverages and makes the most of that sort of superpower, which is pretty cool. And I think that's the sort of territory we're going into for our Go Do, right? We're thinking about the power of the mind.
Yes, definitely. I think one thing he kind of touched on was saying how he thinks the brain is an amazing thing. So I think that's a good place to start, isn't it, Gary?
Yeah, and I love that. I think that completely. And what sort of struck me when he said it was almost you can tell your brain something. There's almost like more than one of us in here sometimes, right? And he said that thing around if you sort of tell your brain that you've got a goal or the brain's an amazing thing, you can set a goal and you can sort of go and pursue it. I really like that. And I think that's what we want to maybe ask and encourage people for this week's Go Do, which is to really consider what you would like to tell yourself is that next big, exciting or scary or fun goal that you haven't set yourself, and how might you go about kind of setting yourself that as an outcome, installing it somewhere in your mind and then pursuing it in reality.
Yeah, what's that thing that sort of really motivates you because it's a little bit out of reach or you never thought you could do it, and set your sights on that. And as Michael said, the brain is an incredible thing.
Yeah, good things will happen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us again on this episode of the Run Life podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, all the usual places, TikTok. We are at run_alive on Instagram. You can find all the other links from there. And don't forget to check out, you'll get some coffee from Hardlines Cafe. You can get 20% off that. Links in the show notes. And Race Day Prints, you can get 15% off that to commemorate your big race coming up this marathon season. Again, the link is in the show notes. Looking forward to catching up with you both next week, Gary and Jenny.
Yeah, I can't wait.